Right now, Albanian crime bosses are sitting in exile, knowing exactly where 3 tons of stolen British cash is rotting in the ground. £30 million from the biggest heist in UK history, buried like pirate treasure and slowly decomposing into worthless pulp. This isn't money sitting safely in a bank vault. This isn't a politician's secret offshore account. This is physical cash, mountains of £50 and £20 notes, hidden in a location so secret that even after 18 years of searching, Britain's most advanced police investigation has never found a single note. The Albanian mastermind who buried it was just deported back to his homeland 3 months ago. His name is Jetmir Bucpapa, and he orchestrated the largest cash robbery in British history, the infamous Securitas depot robbery that netted £53 million in a single night. But here's the terrifying part, that buried treasure was just the beginning. What started as one audacious Albanian heist would spawn a criminal evolution that turned young Albanian gangs into social media celebrities, built international drug empires worth billions, and the ripple effects would topple politicians, bring down corrupt judges, and expose billion-pound drug networks across Europe. This is the story of how one Albanian gang's 3 tons of buried cash changed British organised crime forever. From the Securitas Heist to the Hellbanians' viral empire to Operation Venetic and the Encrypted bust that brought it all crashing down. And at the end of it all, that money is still down there somewhere, getting more worthless by the day. August 2023, Belmarsh Prison, southeast London. After serving 15 years behind bars, Jetmir Bucpapa walks free. Within hours, he's on a plane to Albania, permanently banned from returning to the UK. The authorities escort him personally to the aircraft. No interviews, no statements, no final words about where he hid £30 million in stolen cash. Bucpapa had convinced the court he was penniless. When ordered to pay restitution, the judge accepted his claim that he had nothing left. His payment was set at exactly £1. £1. For the man who stole 53 million. Let's break down these numbers because they're absolutely staggering. Total stolen from Securitas Depot, £52,996,760. Amount recovered by police, approximately £20 million. Amount still missing, 30+ million. But here's the detail that should keep you awake at night. The gang left behind another £154 million because they physically couldn't transport it. They had unlimited access to over £200 million in cash, and they could only take what fit in their vehicles. The money they did steal filled an entire articulated lorry. £30 million in used banknotes weighs approximately 3 tons. 3 tons of untraceable cash that vanished without a trace. Securitas Depot, Tonbridge, Kent. February 22, 2006, 1 a.m. The building contained the largest cash storage facility in the UK. Money from banks across the southeast, waiting to be destroyed or redistributed. On any given night, between £150 to £300 million in cash sat in those vaults. The gang knew exactly what they were after. They had inside information, detailed floor plans, security schedules, and the manager's personal routine. This wasn't opportunistic crime. This was precision engineering. But how do you hide 3 tons of cash? How do you launder £30 million without leaving a trace? How do you make that much money simply disappear? Within hours of the discovery, every police force in the UK was searching. Roadblocks appeared on every major route out of Kent. Airports, ports, and train stations were flooded with officers. Banking systems were monitored for unusual large transactions. The investigation became the largest cash robbery inquiry in British history. Over 200 officers working full-time. International cooperation agreements activated. Interpol alerts issued across Europe. They found some of the money. They arrested most of the gang. They secured convictions and lengthy prison sentences. But £30 million, enough to buy 30 average UK homes, enough to fund a small army, enough to disappear forever, was never found. The question isn't whether they hid it. The question is where and whether Jetmir Bucpapa will ever return to collect it. Now, if you're finding this as fascinating as I am while researching it, hit that subscribe button, because what happens next is when this story gets really insane. We're going to see how this one robbery created a criminal legacy that's still unfolding today, and I guarantee the next part will completely change how you think about modern Albanian mafia operations. Every perfect crime needs a betrayer. Stuart Royal wasn't just the mastermind, he was a cage fighter, a man comfortable with violence and intimidation, but even he needed inside help to crack Securitas. The depot manager, Colin Dixon, lived a routine life. Same route to work, same evening routine, same weekend patterns. Royal spent months studying Dixon's life, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. But surveillance alone wouldn't get them inside those vaults. They needed someone with access, someone with security codes, someone who could disable the systems from within. They found their inside man among the depot employees. For months, this person provided detailed intelligence, shift patterns, security protocols, vault access procedures, and most crucially, when the facility would contain the maximum amount of cash. The betrayal was worth millions. The insider's identity was kept secret during the trial to prevent retaliation. They received witness protection and a new identity. Somewhere in the UK today, someone is living under a false name, knowing they helped execute the crime of the century. February 21st, 2006, 6:30 p.m. Colin Dixon finishes his shift at Securitas and drives home to his wife and 8-year-old son. He has no idea his entire life is about to change. The gang follows him home. They've been watching his house for weeks. They know his routine, his family's schedule, even which rooms they use in the evenings. At 6:45 p.m., Dixon pulls into his driveway. Before he can get out of his car, men in high-visibility jackets approach him. They look like police officers. They sound official. They tell him there's been an incident at the depot and they need him to come with them immediately. Dixon gets into their vehicle. Within minutes, he realizes this isn't police business. Meanwhile, other gang members simultaneously grab Dixon's wife and child from their home. 3 separate locations. Perfect coordination. No room for error. The family is told the rules. Cooperate completely, and everyone stays safe. Resist, and people get hurt. 1 a.m. The gang arrives at the Securitas depot in convoy. Dixon is forced to disable the security systems and provide access codes. His wife and son are held at gunpoint in separate locations, insurance against any heroics. 14 night shift workers are already inside the building. They're cable-tied, forced to lie on the ground, and told not to look at anyone's faces. The gang works with military precision. They know exactly which vaults contain the most valuable currency. They ignore the coins, the damaged notes waiting for destruction, and the lower denomination bundles. They want only the highest value, most portable cash. The loading takes 4 hours, 3 tons of money transferred from vault to truck. The gang members are calm, methodical, almost businesslike. This isn't frantic desperation, it's professional execution. At 5 a.m., they release the workers and disappear into the Kent countryside with £52,996,760. Pause for a second. Where do you think you could hide 3 tons of cash without a trace? Put your best idea in the comments now, because what happens next will show you just how impossible this challenge really is. The gang's first error was celebrating too early. Within days of the robbery, some members were spending money in local pubs, buying rounds for entire bars, flashing cash like they'd won the lottery. Small-time criminals suddenly driving expensive cars. Known associates of Jetmir Bucpapa appearing with luxury watches and designer clothes. Bank deposits that made no sense for people with no legitimate income. The police investigation moved fast. CCTV footage, mobile phone records, financial surveillance. The net was closing. But by the time arrests began, the money was gone. Not spent, hidden, not laundered, buried, not recovered, disappeared. And that's when British organised crime changed forever. Because what happened next would create a generation of criminals who learned very different lessons from the Securitas success. 2008, Barking, East London. While Jetmir Bucpapa sat in prison refusing to reveal where he'd hidden £30 million, a new generation of Albanian criminals was coming of age on British streets. They called themselves the Hellbanians. Unlike the professional, secretive criminals who came before them, these young men had grown up with social media. They didn't hide their wealth. They flaunted it. They didn't avoid attention. They demanded it. The Hellbanians were everything traditional organized crime wasn't. Young, brash, public, and seemingly obsessed with fame. They made music videos showcasing their lifestyle. They posted photos of cash, cars, and weapons on social media platforms. They treated criminal success like a marketing opportunity. But here's what law enforcement failed to understand initially. This wasn't stupidity. This was strategy. The Hellbanians were using publicity as recruitment, intimidation, and territorial marking all at once. July 2011, Trafalgar Square, central London. Tourists and office workers going about their afternoon suddenly witnessed something unprecedented, a full-scale gang war erupting in one of Britain's most famous public spaces. The Hellbanians had arranged to meet their rivals, a gang called On Top of the Rest, OTR, for what started as a confrontation over drug territory. What followed was 90 minutes of absolute chaos. Knives appeared, bottles became weapons. The youngest participants were 13 years old, 13-year-old children fighting with blades in the shadow of Nelson's column, while tourists filmed everything on their phones. Police response was massive but slow. No one had expected organized gang warfare in the heart of tourist London. By the time order was restored, the footage was already spreading online. This wasn't just gang violence, it was performance violence, designed to be seen, shared, and discussed. The Hellbanians had achieved something their predecessors never could: viral notoriety. And speaking of sharing, if this story is blowing your mind, smash that like button, because trust me, we're just getting started. What I'm about to show you next will make that Trafalgar Square fight look like a playground scuffle. While traditional organized crime families maintained strict codes of silence, the Hellbanians did the opposite. They produced professional music videos that were essentially criminal recruitment advertisements. The videos showed young men with designer clothes, expensive cars, and stacks of cash. The lyrics explicitly referenced drug dealing, violence, and territorial control. The imagery was deliberately intimidating, messages to rivals and recruitment tools for potential associates. But most importantly, the videos were good. Professional production values, catchy hooks, genuine artistic merit. They weren't just criminal content. They were entertainment that happened to be created by criminals. But here's where it gets absolutely insane. In one video, a Hellbanians member literally threw £20 notes into the Thames while rapping about drowning the competition. In another, they hired professional dancers to perform choreographed routines around piles of what appeared to be genuine cash and Class A drugs. This created a problem law enforcement had never faced before. How do you prosecute someone for a music video? How do you prove that artistic expression constitutes criminal conspiracy? How do you shut down a gang whose primary weapon is viral marketing? The Hellbanians represented a fundamental shift in how organized crime operated in the UK. Instead of large-scale operations like the Securitas Heist, they ran multiple smaller operations that were harder to detect and easier to replace if disrupted. Drug dealing became more sophisticated. Instead of street corners, they used social media to connect with customers. Instead of fixed locations, they used delivery services. Instead of hiding from police attention, they cultivated public personas that made them seem like local celebrities rather than dangerous criminals. The younger Albanian generation learned from Bucpapa's generation, but adapted their methods for the digital age. They understood that in the modern world, reputation was as valuable as actual criminal success. But they also learned that fame could be a double-edged sword, and that the same technology that made them famous would eventually be used to destroy them. By 2015, Albanian organized crime had evolved beyond recognition. The flashy social media presence of the Hellbanians was replaced by something far more sophisticated: encrypted communication networks that connected criminal operations across multiple continents. Two platforms dominated this underground economy: Encrochat and Sky ECC. These weren't ordinary messaging apps. They were purpose-built for criminal communication: military-grade encryption, automatic message deletion, panic buttons that could wipe entire devices remotely. Albanian language became the second most used language on Sky ECC, with over 16,000 users. This represented a criminal network of unprecedented scale and sophistication. The messages flowing through these platforms revealed everything: drug shipments worth hundreds of millions, money laundering operations spanning dozens of countries, corruption reaching the highest levels of government, and contract killings ordered as casually as pizza deliveries. In 2020, law enforcement across Europe achieved something unprecedented. They cracked both Encrochat and Sky ECC simultaneously. Millions of encrypted messages suddenly became readable. Criminal communications that had been completely secure were now evidence in court. But here's what made investigators' blood run cold. One recovered Sky ECC message read simply: "Problem sorted. £200,000 transferred. Cleanup crew finished tonight." This wasn't business communication. This was murder being discussed like a grocery order. Another message chain showed Albanian bosses casually arranging the importation of 2 tons of cocaine while simultaneously discussing which British MPs they had in their pocket. The level of criminal sophistication and political corruption was beyond anything law enforcement had imagined. Operation after operation was rolled up. In Albania itself, high-ranking government officials were arrested. Police officers were charged with corruption. Judges faced investigation. The encrypted messages had exposed criminal networks that reached every level of society. The Sky ECC revelations didn't just expose criminals, they brought down governments. In Albania, dozens of high-ranking officials were implicated in criminal conspiracies. The messages showed direct communication between gangsters and politicians, judges taking bribes, police officers providing protection. One message that shocked the Albanian public showed a government minister texting, "Package delivered as promised. Your friends in Tirana are very grateful for the cooperation." The package was later revealed to be 500 kilograms of heroin that had been allowed through customs without inspection. Another exchange showed a high-ranking Albanian judge responding to a crime boss's request to fix a trial verdict with, "Consider it done." Same account as before. This wasn't isolated corruption. This was systematic state capture. The head of Albania's special prosecution stated publicly that the encrypted app evidence had revealed links between crime, politics, justice, and police that went far deeper than anyone had suspected. This wasn't just criminal activity, it was state capture on an unprecedented scale. Albanian organized crime hadn't just infiltrated society. In many cases, it had become the society. 2021 to 2024. The arrests were relentless. Operation Gorgon alone resulted in 15 arrests and the seizure of €1 million in cash plus extensive real estate holdings. 37 members of an international ethnic Albanian organized crime group were arrested in a single US operation. Belgian authorities dismantled networks worth hundreds of millions. German prosecutors filed charges against dozens of suspects. The criminal empire that had grown from the seeds planted by the Securitas Heist was finally facing systematic dismantlement. But there was still one outstanding question that no amount of encrypted messages could answer. Today, Jetmir Bucpapa walks free in Albania, deported but not defeated, banned from the UK but not from the £30 million he hid somewhere within its borders. Albanian media reports suggest he lives quietly, avoiding attention, giving no interviews. The man who orchestrated the crime of the century has become a ghost in his homeland. But here's what should terrify British authorities. Bucpapa was the professional. He was from the generation that understood discipline, patience, and long-term planning. He hid that money with the skill of someone who knew he might wait decades to retrieve it. £30 million in cash doesn't just disappear. It's buried, stored, hidden, or invested. It's somewhere specific, waiting for someone with exact knowledge of its location. Think about this practically. 3 tons of cash requires significant storage space. Underground bunkers, abandoned buildings, industrial storage facilities, or rural burial sites. It needs to be somewhere secure enough to remain undisturbed for nearly 2 decades, but accessible enough for eventual recovery. British police have followed thousands of leads. Property purchases by Bucpapa's associates, land deals in remote areas, storage facility rentals, bank vault acquisitions. Every potential hiding place has been investigated, but £30 million remains missing. The most likely scenario is that Bucpapa created multiple hiding places, distributing the money across several locations to minimize risk. This would explain why some cash was recovered while the majority disappeared completely. So here we are, 18 years later. The Securitas Heist spawned a criminal revolution that changed British organised crime forever. From analog robberies to digital empires, from professional silence to viral self-promotion, from local Albanian gangs to international syndicates worth billions, law enforcement adapted, technology evolved, and the most sophisticated criminal networks in history were ultimately exposed by their own encrypted communications. But £30 million in cash is still missing, somewhere in the United Kingdom, possibly within driving distance of where you're watching this video. There's enough money to change your life forever. Jetmir Bucpapa knows where it is. He's free, he's alive, and he's never revealed the location. The question isn't whether the money still exists. Cash doesn't decay that quickly, and nobody spends £30 million without leaving traces. The question is whether Bucpapa will ever return to collect it, and whether, when he does, anyone will be watching. So here's my question for you. If you had to hide £30 million in cash for 18 years without anyone finding it, where would you put it? Drop your theories in the comments, because I'm genuinely curious if anyone can think like a master criminal. And if you want to see more deep dives into cases like this that will absolutely blow your mind, make sure you're subscribed, because the stories I've got coming will make this look tame.